Hey everyone, so another impromptu video here, and this one is about listen to your body and listen to your gut. And I want to get into more about what I mean by this and how it relates to what you're going through in a moment. But I wanted to mention I am doing one-on-one supportive coaching. I have a free 15-minute consultation, 30-minute calls, 60-minute calls, and I offer them at lower rates than other places you might find online. I've also put together 4-session coaching packages for those who might want to meet a little more regularly, and that's at a further reduced rate. I will put the link to my online booking calendar in the description of this video, as well as a link to my website if you're interested in reading more about my story, or if you want to book sessions, you can do that there as well. I will also leave my email address if you have a single question. So listening to your body/gut. So this has been coming up a lot in coaching, and whether someone is in a situation where they're tapering or whether they're in acute or post-acute or protracted withdrawal, it could relate to sensitivities they're having. It could relate to just something going on with their symptoms. And I've seen this coming up a lot lately where people are saying, I just feel like it's this. But everything I'm reading online or my psychiatrist is saying that. Now, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm a medical professional by any means. It's just all of my experience with coaching people and living this experience for as long as I did. I was sick for 4.5 years after I came off my original SSRI. And I've mentioned before in videos how I do see patterns. And so I understand that people have altered brain function when they're in very bad shape. Some people have very severe mental symptoms. Some people have very severe akathisia, which translates into brain and thinking issues, thought issues. And there's people who have cognitive problems, memory problems. I mean, these drugs clearly affect your brain. And so I understand that the connection to your gut, your intuition, listening to your body might not be possible when you're acutely suffering because you're so disconnected, because you're just in survival mode. I understand that. But a lot of people still really deep down can connect with that because they'll make comments to me like that. I just don't feel like it's this, or my I'm struggling with this because here's what I actually believe, or here's what I'm thinking. So when I took benzos, I only took them for 3 months, and that included a taper. So I went paradoxical to them in 3 weeks, and I started a micro taper, and the paradoxical reactions were getting so severe that I ended up coming down in my dose from 40 or down in my dose by 40%. I still had 60% left to taper, but I was so incredibly ill. I was like, I need off this drug. Like, the forums were telling me to try to stabilize and taper for 2 years. And I'm like, I will not make it if I do that. And I understand, the theory of it. And I understand the theory of micro tapering. And I understand the 5 to 10%. But I've said this in other videos. Once you get into complicated situations, it's not that straightforward. And I'm very, very glad I listened to my intuition and got off the drug because I would only be 6 months drug free if I would have tapered for 2 years. I was not, and I don't believe I ever would have gotten stable on benzos. I had no evidence that was going to happen, and I was unwilling to, take a dose for 6 months to hope that I would stabilize. I had to come off, and my body was telling me. I just had this intuitive feeling. I would say to my mom, I feel like I'm being poisoned. And when the benzo was helping, which was in the first 3 weeks, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel that way when I took SSRIs for many years, but suddenly it was just like, I feel toxic. Like, I can't explain it. I just feel very, very toxic and sick and poisoned. I felt poisoned. So it was the right decision for me. I feel 1,000 times better now. And I'm 34 months off. And my mom and I actually made a list this morning because I'm going through eczema or something. I don't know if it's related to histamine. I don't know if it's related to post-COVID. I made a video about that, and depending on what order I post things in, it'll either have just been posted or I'll be posting it after this. And I'm really, really struggling with the symptoms. I mean, very, very, very itchy, very uncomfortable, keeping me up at night, so much scratching, open wounds, and it's spreading. And so it's causing me quite a bit of distress. And I'm trying to comfort myself because it's giving me anxiety and because it's distressing, and I've never had skin issues. I don't know how to deal with it. And the standard treatment is topical steroids, which I'll never take. And So I was thinking about this when I was awake in the night because I couldn't sleep. And I'm like, how many things have I intuitively figured out on my own? So there was a list of 12 different things. So I've had all of these conditions that I figured out essentially the cure to, meaning I don't have symptoms of it anymore. Or it's to such a manageable level that I don't, even if I have a flare or symptoms, they don't interfere with my life at all. So a few of them are hip impingement, sciatica, excessive sweating, IBS, which turned out to be celiac disease, which I was able to figure out. My drug withdrawal problems. There was 12 things. That's 5 of them that I can think of off the top of my head. But sinus issues. I had chronic sinus problems. I had chronic dry eye. I had cracked heels. All of those things I figured out on my own, and it's like I've done that by listening to my body and listening to my intuition. And a lot of that gets lost in the situation of drug withdrawal because people are very influenced by the online communities, which is understandable because the doctors are of no help and your family doesn't know what to do. So you feel lost. And so you're looking for help. But I do think some of their advice is misguided, but that's, what people go by. So they get very confused in their minds about everything the forums are saying and in just their own research and whether they've joined, Facebook groups. So I've had conversations with people about B vitamin deficiencies, and they're like, maybe that's what's continuing my symptoms or causing my symptoms, even if they're early on in their coming off of psychiatric drugs. They'll be like, well, maybe I have symptoms because I'm B vitamin deficient. So then they'll go into the standard, B vitamin deficiency Facebook groups or whatever, or B12 injections or methylcobalamin or whatever. And those people are not typically drug injured. So the advice that's given is often not helpful, if not hurtful, for the people in the drug injured community, and they don't understand. So they'll do whatever protocols are talked about in these groups, and then they're like, why do I feel so much worse? And intuitively, I feel like they're feeling like, okay, I'm hyper reacting to it, but they're trying so hard to fix what the symptoms are, and they're like, if this is related to my B vitamins, I need to fix it. But they're not listening to their gut. I can just tell by the way they're talking that their fear brain is just going crazy and they're in that fix it mode, which is what we do because we need to feel better. And so they're not just kind of sitting back and being like, and listening to that intuition. And so again, I have people who are tapering who will be like, I'm really not comfortable with the schedule that I was given by, an online forum or whatever. And I don't know psychologically how I'm going to taper for years. Not only that, but I'm already so destabilized and my body is telling me to just get off because I'm sick no matter what I do. I'm sick if I hold, I'm sick if I updose, I'm sick if I make micro cuts. Like, what am I doing? And so you have to listen to your gut and you have to try to connect with it as much as possible. I feel like I've really got in tune with myself over the last several years, while I was going through this healing journey. And I'm like, listen to your body, Melissa. Obviously there is a lot of good advice in those forums, but there's other things where you have to take with a grain of salt and you have to do what's best for you. So I just started experimenting with things in small doses. So, supplements never were helpful for me, but just small things. Like some people were saying, stay out of chlorinated pools because it's going to flare your symptoms. I actually found a great amount of relief in chlorinated pools, not because they were chlorinated, but because that was all I had access to. And just the gliding through the water really helped my movements, my involuntary movements. And it was something that was good for me. And I incorporated it into my daily life once I was well enough to go out. This is not when I was in acute. This was further on. Especially when I would get really bad waves. So that would help. And same with, walking was really helpful. Even though I had heard online that sunlight can trigger symptoms or heat can trigger symptoms, I felt the opposite where I was like, this feels like a detoxer. I'm sweating, I'm walking. It's making me feel better. So I incorporated that. It was listening to my body. Or if I, do something that would kind of flare me up and I wouldn't feel well, I'm like, hey, I have to step back. For me, what that looked like was resting when I could. This is again when I was able to start resting. But sometimes I couldn't rest. So if I could, I would rest. I would try to stay off of my phone, the internet, not just because I feel like the excess research is harmful, but also the EMF. I've talked about that. I do feel like excessive time, in front of screens it worsens tinnitus. I think it can flare up other symptoms. And so just kind of detoxing from your phone, from the internet. For me, that was always helpful. I would go to my grandma's and I would just, try to visit, as much as I could. Or sometimes I was there and I was walking around. It just really depended, but try to really listen to your gut and to what your body is telling you. So one of the things, I came across this eczema coach on Instagram, and sometimes I wonder if, because that's what I think I have, because I have these skin issues now since I got COVID. Very, very itchy and not sure what it is, but I'm thinking it's eczema. And so I was, trying to find a little bit of help because I have no experience with this. And I came across this eczema coach, and she just seems to know so much about eczema that I'm like, man, I need to book a consultation with her. And sometimes I wonder if people see my videos and think, because I've made a lot of videos on a lot of topics, and I wonder if people see me that way. But anyway, that's besides the point. I mean, I do feel like I know a lot about psychiatric drugs. I mean, I've been in this space for almost 6 years total. But anyway, she really emphasizes listening to your body. And a lot of the advice she gives crosses over into our situations. And I agree with, a lot of her approaches, and how most things that we go through are multifaceted, multifactorial, as you probably know. She talked about how eczema is potentially a liver detox issue, which I also believe is an issue with people in psychiatric drug withdrawal. I've talked about that before. And, just, I'm trying to just listen to what my body's saying, trying a couple of natural things here and there, seeing how my body responds, sitting with the symptoms and being like, kind of like body talk, like, even though I don't know anything really about that formally, but just kind of trying to tune in and like, what does my body need? And it's interesting because I've gotten really good at kind of channeling that over the years, and my body is telling me to do certain things. And this happened to me in my withdrawal once I started to tune in, and all of those other things I mentioned that I've really pretty much cured on my own. That's what I did with all of them. And it's really important because your body is wise, and your body will tell you what it needs or wants if you listen to it. And that might sound hoo-hoo and, way out there, but it really is a thing. And I know that people are experiencing this because it comes up in my coaching again and again and again. People just word it differently. They're like, I don't feel right. I'm trying to correct this deficiency, but I feel like it's making me sicker. And I'm like, listen to that. Or, I tried this that someone suggested and I feel like it's making me worse. And I'm like, listen to that, Obviously, there's some aspects of, when you've read so much that you start to worry that everything is affecting you, but it's a different kind of conversation. It's just like, I just feel it. It just doesn't feel right. You need to listen to that because it's going to get you through and it's going to really help you. And stay off the groups. You get to a point where you know what's going on, sort of the general advice, and then just unplug because I've never heard of anybody saying, you know what, I did excessive research in the forums and I figured it out. It's very rarely the case. So, you know what you need to know, unplug and start to listen to your body. And even with people who have chronic gut issues from benzos, I mean, I went through chronic gut issues for many years from undiagnosed celiac disease. I got misdiagnosed. It was horrible. And once I started tracking things, like I started writing down everything I was eating and when I was feeling worse, because sometimes things can have delayed reactions. So I've talked about this with gut issue, clients, that in my own figuring out of my gut issues, food reactions can happen up to 72 hours after ingestion. So if you can kind of track everything and watch for patterns, it'll speak to you. Like, I don't agree with, so like surviving antidepressants will have you write like just constantly your symptoms and your entire day, like minute by minute. I think that can become a real obsession. But just especially if you have like gut issues, or if you're you're suspecting you're reacting to supplements or something like that, it could be an immediate reaction. It could be delayed. Sometimes that can be helpful. But if you find it's raising your anxiety and your obsessions, stop doing it. Listen to your body. Some people find that helpful, all the writing down, and some people don't. So just, again, do what's intuitive. So anyway, I'm rambling. I just wanted to say that. Let me know in the comments if this is something you tried to do, if you've tried to implement, or if you feel like the online information is just overtaken and you just feel frantic and you have no idea which way to go anymore. Yeah, and I hope you all are doing well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.